Good evening. I hope you're well. I hope you had a nice and relaxing week. And welcome to the last book we will ever do. Joyce's Ulysses. And I know, well, I don't know if you know, but if you know about this book, then you'll know it's famed for being very good and very hard. So this will be a longer pre-read than usual because there is more to prepare you for, and I kind of instituted the whole pre-read thing with this book in mind. So let's just begin. So we should be excited about this, not daunted. I mean, this is the top of basically all the greatest novels of all time lists. Time magazine started their list in books published since 1923, so that they didn't have to tangle with Ulysses. It's the kind of book about which people say they can divide their life into the time before they read it and the time after they read it, like we divide our time into before Christ and after him. Kind of book about which people say there are two types of people, those who have read it and those who have not. Now, I know those are kind of off-puttingly pompous statements, but they may be perhaps truer than you think. I don't know if there's two types of people, but there might well be two types of you, if you'll allow that, the you who has read Ulysses and the you who has not. I was always put off personally because I'd heard how every chapter was in a different style, and to me that sounded like like showing off, like a kind of technical demonstration rather than something with heart, but I assure you that that's not the case. James Joyce, that's the author, his commitment to life and to truth and to humanity in this book is sincere. It's supremely sincere. It's about as sincere as anything you'll see. And you'll be very lucky if your life brings you to equally committed things, a handful of times. I've got a few different sections on how to read this. The first thing is your knowledge. So I'll set you up with a bit. Not loads, I don't want to give you too much knowledge. Know that the book's set in Dublin, 1904. It comprises 18 chapters and has three main characters. Stephen Dedalus, an intellectual young man, and Leopold and Molly Bloom, an older married couple. Older than Stephen, kind of middle-aged themselves. There are, and this is sort of an oversimplification, but roughly correct, 3 chapters of Stephen, then 14 of Leopold, and then 1 of Molly. Leopold's ones are really the kind of heart of the book. If you've heard it's just a book about a man walking around Dublin for a day, that's him that people are talking about. So that's your knowledge. As to your attitude, I think the best I've ever heard it put is by Faulkner, who we've quoted before. He said, "You should approach Joyce's Ulysses as the illiterate Baptist preacher approaches the Old Testament, with faith." And you will be able to grasp lots of this. I'm just assuming you're like me, which you are. There will be bits where you just don't know what's happening, but in those, I would say, don't fight it too hard. Just be content that the kind of language and the rhythm, let them wash over you. There's even boring parts where you'll just want to do like skim reading and kind of not have to attend to it too much. That's fine too. The usual rules don't quite apply here. So be loose, have faith, and be kind of not too hard on yourself. Second attitude thing is disregard the Greek stuff. That's crap, basically. It's not crap, but it's a bog if you step into it, and it's a bog best avoided. What I mean is that obviously the title is a Greek hero, and each chapter, depending on the version you'll get, is named after a kind of episode of the Odyssey, I hope. But anyway, so I've read a few of the comparisons, like this Cyclops and Telemachus and you hear all these things, but Joyce, the reason that some versions have it and some don't is apparently because Joyce wanted the chapter titles removed when he saw how people were obsessing over them. And I'd recommend this strongly, not because I think it's merely a distraction, but because I think it actually leads you backwards, not just off course, but in the opposite direction to the one in which you should be traveling. And I'll explain what I mean by that in the post-read. And thirdly, do relax and enjoy yourself. These massive tomes are intimidating, and you think because they're serious works, they are only serious, but they're serious in other things too. And this Ulysses is funny and chirpy and kind of, funny and chirpy. As for technique, I would say, and this is what I did second reading in it, and towards the end of the first reading, definitely better, use Spark Notes. Before you read a chapter, search Spark Notes Ulysses chapter whatever, and then there will be a summary section and an analysis section. Just read the summary section before you go in, because the plot is not really the main thing, and if you know what you're looking for, you'll be able to find it more. I imagine if I was watching this, I'd resist that. I'd think I'd do it myself, and you can, but I would suggest you do this. It makes it better. 18 chapters, and it's 3 weeks I'm gonna give us for this, so I would just say do one a day, because it's not like you're gonna be flying. There will be days that make you, well, hang on, 18 chapters now. Sorry, you should have a month if it's gonna no, because I have to go. I'm going on holiday to Ireland, so it'll be 3 weeks, but maybe just watch it a bit later. Sorry about that. Or maybe I'll post, I don't know, but 3 or 4 weeks, or whatever. Read it in your own time. Yeah, do one chapter a day. That will make it easier. Towards the end, you'll probably start racing a bit faster than that. If you use ebooks, make sure you get the copy from Project Gutenberg. I've looked at all the ones on the Kindle store, and they're all crap. The one I first used didn't, and most of them don't even tell you when one chapter ends and another begins. They miss punctuation and stuff. So just go to Project Gutenberg. It's really well formatted, and you can trust it. If you're buying a physical copy, I imagine none of them have those problems, but be careful before you buy it. Flick through and see, does this have the chapters? Because it really is a nightmare trying to do it without them. Now, my last thing to give you, I think it's the last thing, is encouragement, a few tips of encouragement to kind of keep you going, because it is long. I think it's, maybe I'm showing off by saying this, but I think it's 683 pages and 278,000 words. So it's quite a lot. But here's my encouragement. There's a few stages to it. In the early part of the book, the first 3 chapters are Stephen Daedalus, and he's the hardest character to understand. So if you're feeling discouraged and like you can't do it, be aware that it gets easier after that. Chapter 3 itself is by far the hardest one of any chapter in the book. So take comfort in the fact that once you're through that, you're over the worst of it. And know that chapter 4, once that's over, is just delightful. Leopold Bloom makes breakfast and brings it up to Molly, goes to a butcher's, and then takes a shit. And I think it's the most kind of, it's definitely my favourite chapter of any book ever. And I'm gonna have to think about what it is about it that's so good before we meet again. But it's just so good. Remember you've got that waiting for you as you power through 3. The Bloom chapters, so I suppose you'd say 14 to 17, are fun. But if you do ever find yourself slogging, then think ahead again this time to the final chapter. That's Molly's one, often called Molly Bloom's soliloquy. You can look up Molly Bloom's soliloquy to hear the praise and kind of rapture people are in about it. That will encourage you. It's often performed on its own stage, and its final phrase which I won't say is one of the most recognisable and powerful in all of literature. More encouragement if you're stuck. I'd read. There's a list of other people talking about Ulysses, famous people. I'd peruse that, get your strength up, and I'd also look at the picture of Marilyn Monroe reading Ulysses. Though I don't know why that helps, but when I first read it, it definitely did. So do that if you please. Yeah, more encouragement. Yeah, try to find a greatest books list that doesn't have Ulysses in the top 5, or even in the top 1. Really, ask your friends if they've read Ulysses, which they definitely haven't, and carry the book around with you and make a great show of it, because they will definitely know that means you're better than them. And that's all, actually. That didn't take as long as I thought. Yeah, I really hope you'll do this one. Well, actually, I won't say too much. I'll just see you in. I'm sorry I don't know how long it will be. I'd miscalculated that. Let's assume 3 weeks. I'll see you then. Have a nice March.